Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we'll be exploring how the rapid progression of air travel in the 1930s revolutionized the United States, transforming the nation's economy, fostering cultural exchange, and reshaping the perception of distance and time, ultimately playing a key role in the country's growth and modernization during this era. Despite the backdrop of the Great Depression, air travel emerged as a beacon of futuristic promise, offering not just a new way to travel, but a new way to think about time, distance, and national identity. Aviation in the 1930s wasn't just about logistics. It was about moving the nation forward socially, economically, and culturally. We will look at how technological innovations, economic transformations, cultural shifts, and the symbolism of flight reshaped American society during this pivotal decade. Technological advances. One of the most critical factors in aviation's rise was the wave of technological innovation that took place throughout the decade. Metal airplanes, such as the Boeing 247, introduced in 1933, replaced earlier wood and fabric models, making air travel significantly safer, more durable, and more efficient. The Boeing 247 is often considered the first modern airliner, featuring innovations such as retractable landing gear, autopilot capability, and a sleek, streamlined design. Another major breakthrough was the introduction of pressurized cabins, which allowed planes to fly at higher altitudes and avoid much of the turbulence caused by weather patterns. The Boeing 307 Stratoliner, introduced in 1938, was the first commercial aircraft equipped with a pressurized cabin. Engineers like Clarence Kelly Johnson played an essential role in developing these technologies. Pressurization made long-distance, high-altitude travel viable and set the stage for global air routes. Another landmark achievement was the Douglas DC-3, introduced in 1935. It became the most important transport aircraft of the decade and is often credited with making commercial air travel profitable. Its design allowed airlines to sustain themselves purely on passenger revenue without relying heavily on government airmail contracts. The DC-3 could carry 21 passengers and had a cruising speed of 207 miles per hour, a marvel at the time. Airlines began to incorporate luxury into their flights as well, adding onboard meals, stewardesses, and amenities like better ventilation and noise insulation. These advancements positioned aviation as a cutting-edge industry that promised a more connected, modern world. Economic transformation. The economic impact of aviation in the 1930s was profound. Major airlines like United, Pan American World Airways, and Transcontinental and Western Airway (TWA) expanded rapidly. They received a boost through government support, particularly through legislation such as the Airmail Act of 1934, which reorganized how mail contracts were awarded and strengthened airline profitability. The Civil Aeronautics Act of 1938 further regulated airline safety and pricing, creating the Civil Aeronautics Authority, which would later become the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration. This legislative framework stabilized the industry and encouraged new investment. Aviation spurred job creation across multiple sectors. Aircraft manufacturers like Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed grew exponentially. Airport construction also surged. New York's LaGuardia Airport, which opened in 1939, was hailed as the most modern airport in the world, with its advanced runways and luxurious passenger terminals. Tourism to states like California and Florida expanded as air travel made once distant vacation spots easily accessible. Businesses were able to create national operations using aviation to bridge what had once been insurmountable distances. Aviation's economic contributions helped lay the groundwork for post-depression recovery and fueled America's modernization. Cultural exchange and national unity. Air travel did more than move goods and people. It fostered cultural exchange and national unity. Journalists, artists, athletes, and entertainers could now crisscross the country with relative ease, exposing Americans to regional cultures they might never have otherwise encountered. This contributed to a growing sense of a shared American identity. Icons like Amelia Earhart and Howard Hughes captured the public's imagination. Earhart's solo transatlantic flight in 1932 was a landmark event that demonstrated both the technological possibilities of aviation and the expanding role of women in public life. Howard Hughes, a billionaire and aviation pioneer, set a record by flying around the world in just 91 hours in 1938. Hollywood contributed as well. Films like Test Pilot in 1938 romanticized pilots as daring adventurers and framed aviation as both glamorous and patriotic. Airline advertising depicted air travel as an elite experience, filled with promise and excitement, helping solidify its place in popular culture. Race and gender. Yet, the benefits of aviation were not evenly distributed. Women made significant strides thanks to figures like Amelia Earhart, who also established the 99s, an international organization of female pilots. Earhart's advocacy helped crack the door open for future generations of women in aviation. For Black Americans, the barriers were even greater. Despite the inspirational example of Bessie Coleman, the first African American woman to earn a pilot's license, few opportunities existed for Black aviators in the 1930s. Segregation was prevalent in airports, airlines, and pilot training programs. Still, aviation inspired dreams that would later manifest in the successes of the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II. International connection and diplomacy. Aviation also extended America's reach beyond its borders. Pan Am, often called America's airline to the world, led the way in establishing international routes, especially to Latin America and the Caribbean. The Boeing 314 Clipper, introduced in 1939, symbolized this international expansion with its ability to make transatlantic and transpacific flights. Aviation became a tool of soft diplomacy, promoting American culture, economic interest, and technological superiority abroad. At a time of rising global tensions, aviation laid the groundwork for the rapid military mobilizations that would be crucial during World War II. Air travel as a symbol of modernity. In the 1930s, air travel symbolized modernity and progress. It represented man's conquest over nature and a glimpse into a fast approaching future. The streamlined designs of aircraft like the DC-3 and Boeing 307 reflected broader Art Deco trends, emphasizing speed, efficiency, and beauty. Airports, too, became shrines to modern architecture. The Art Deco terminal at Houston Hobby Airport, designed in the late 1930s, remains an iconic example of how aviation influenced design and aesthetics. Despite its expense and the fact that only a small percentage of Americans could afford to fly, aviation captured the national imagination. It was portrayed as a graceful, elite activity, a golden age myth that persists even today. Looking back and forward. Looking back, we see that aviation in the 1930s reshaped not only how Americans traveled, but how they perceived time and distance. It made the vastness of the country feel conquerable and compressed time in ways never before imagined. As we consider today's innovations, from private space travel to AI-driven aviation systems, we should remember how transformative aviation was in the 1930s. It didn't just move people, it moved ideas, dreams, and identities. It taught Americans to think bigger, faster, and more globally. How might space tourism or autonomous air taxis reshape our perceptions in the 21st century, just as aviation did in the 20th? Long-term legacy and modernization. The innovations and infrastructure built in the 1930s set the stage for the dominance of American aviation during World War II and the Cold War. The regulatory framework established during this decade, with institutions like the Civil Aeronautics Board, ensured that aviation grew safely and methodically. Commercial aviation would explode in the post-war years, fueled by the wartime development of more powerful and reliable aircraft. The jet age of the 1950s and 60s, culminating in global mass air travel, owes much to the pioneering work of the 1930s. Moreover, the technological mindset fostered during this era directly influenced America's later achievements, including the Apollo moon landings and the development of satellite communications. Aviation made the impossible seem attainable, paving the way for humanity's next great leaps. Conclusion. Thank you for joining me today. As we've seen, aviation in the 1930s transformed America economically, culturally, diplomatically, and symbolically. It wasn't just a new mode of travel. It was a redefinition of American life, ambition, and possibility. Today, as we stand on the brink of new technological revolutions, from space travel to AI-driven transportation, we can look back at the aviation pioneers of the 1930s for inspiration. Just as they expanded the horizons of their time, we too must dare to imagine, innovate, and explore new frontiers.